Hey guys, welcome back to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with the patch 5.3b rundown. This one's a little bit late in the day, you guys can see it's 16 hours ago at this point, but that turns out to be a blessing in disguise because quite a number of things have actually changed in the couple of hours that the patch notes were live. So let's quickly go through what we can see, and I'm going to actually tell you guys what we can't see anymore. So first off, we have the Showdown event beginning on December 6th. And they actually gave the details of the Showdown event, but then they removed it after the fact, which I'm not quite sure why, but that was the case. And then we also have a correction here which said November 11th, and it's actually November 22nd. Maybe somebody, fat fingered the double ones instead of the double twos on the keyboard, but anyways, we have Black Friday on November 22nd. So next up, we go into the champion changes. We got quite a number of interesting champion changes, the first one being Blitzcrank. So, Blitzcrank, his rocket grab, which is the hook, is going up by 10 damage at base rank, but at max rank it's 40 damage, so the damage increase scales up. Now I actually don't really think this matters all that much at all because the whole point of Blitzcrank's hook is to really pull someone in, right? And it's for your allies to kill them. So the hook itself, the damage of the hook generally doesn't matter, so this one's not very important. But what is actually a really big buff is Overdrive, the second ability. So basically, you guys know whenever you cast the Overdrive, you will gain movement speed, but you will be slowed for a duration after that. So if you cast it once, it's 1.5 seconds slow, and if you do the double cast, which gives you 99% movement speed, it's actually a 2 second slow after the duration ends. Now it's actually a 1 second duration slow after the speed up ends, which this I think is a really huge buff because 1.5 and 2 seconds to 1 second slow, it's actually really huge because this means that after you get slowed and the slow goes away, you can actually probably do something instead of just basically CCing yourself with your own ability. So this one's a pretty huge buff. The ulti damage buff is also pretty big because of course number one is AoE can hit multiple people, and number two, the ulti damage is actually relevant unlike the hook damage in my opinion, because you can run in an ulti a group of people, not just the person you hook, but you can also do that to the person you hook. So overall, huge buff to Blitzcrank all in all. Next up, Samira. So Samira is getting a 10% AD buff on her ultimate, and Samira's ultimate is really the main kind of balancing factor of Samira, because generally how strong Samira is depends on number one, the meta and who is popular in the meta, but number two, her ultimate damage, because you really are playing Samira mostly for her ultimate. So them giving extra 10% AD ratio on the ultimate definitely makes it makes her better, but I don't think it's going to really change her place in the meta that much. Now Shyvana base AD is going up by 10 and armor per level is going up by 5, so it's small buffs there. And whenever you get slay epic monster 8 stacks, you're gonna get 10 stacks instead of 8 stacks. Now this one I think doesn't really matter because how many epic monsters can you really slay in a single game, right? If you get both Herald and First Dragon and then the next two dragons and then like Elder Dragon or something, that's only like 5 times. So this really, if you literally get every objective, the increase of 2 is literally only gonna give you extra 10 stacks. So this is literally completely irrelevant in my opinion. Like these 2 stacks doesn't actually matter at all. So the ulti, the Fury gain per second is going up from like 1 to like 1.5. Basically it's getting 0.5 extra at every rank, and this basically makes you charge your ulti faster. And I think this is where the huge buff really comes in, because charging your ulti faster, basically Shyvana is a ult reliant champion. Without her ult, she's basically kind of useless. She needs her ult to really fight, gank, and do objectives or whatnot. So having her ult charge faster is insane buff, and the health gain when you activate the ult is actually increasing by 70 or so at all ranks. So pretty huge buff to Shyvana as well. So Blitzcrank huge buff, Shyvana pretty huge buff as well, and Echo, his Q is getting a relatively huge buff as well. So the cooldown is going down by 1 second at all ranks, and the damage of the first portion of the Q where it launches outward, AP ratio remains the same, but the base damage goes up by 5, and on the return the base damage is also going up by 5 and the AP ratio remains the same. However, the damage to monsters is reduced by 5%. So this is basically a buff targeted at mid lane Echo, or maybe even top lane Echo if people play it there, and this jungle nerf is compensation for these buffs because they don't want to actually increase his jungle clear speed. I think this is a pretty big buff because whenever you get a small 5 damage buff and a small cooldown buff to your bread and butter skill, which is basically the skill you spam the most, it's actually a pretty big deal. So Echo is getting a relatively good buff as well. And Nautilus gets extra 4 base AD. He doesn't really scale very well with base AD. However, getting extra 4 base AD means in the early levels he is going to hurt a little bit more. When you auto to root the person with your passive. The hook is also going up by 10 damage at all ranks, so again it's probably a little bit more relevant at the earlier ranks, but the AP ratio is dropped by 5%. And meanwhile his shield value is actually going up in terms of the base amount, but the max health amount also goes up by 1%. So overall he's going to be quite a bit tankier even at the first rank. Something to note is they probably want to remove AP, not remove, but discourage AP Nautilus, because AP Nautilus in the jungle is relatively, I wouldn't say popular, but you do see it from time to time, so that's probably what they're trying to achieve here. Next up we have Rengar. Now I think Rengar is one of the strongest junglers in the game, at the moment. And he has gotten one round of nerfs already, if I remember correctly. However, he's getting a second round nerfs. I think that is really good news for me, especially. AD per level going down by 0.5. Overall, this will lead to an AD loss of about 7 at max rank. It is not the most relevant, but it's a step in the right direction. Now, Q damage. The bonus damage is going down by 10, and the AD ratio remains the same. Bonus damage with ferocity also going down by 10 at base. And the damage boost with an empowered basic attack is going down from 75 to 55% at maximum level, and similarly the boost with IE is also going down accordingly. So of course Savagery is his main damaging ability, which this it's a, I wouldn't say it's a huge hit, but it's a pretty decent size hit to the Q. And meanwhile his W is not changed, so W, the tankiness and the healing you get from W remains the same, which is another huge point of why Rengar is strong, because he jumps in, deals all the damage, runs out and heals while he's doing so. And yeah, so Bola Strike, which is his E, the one that roots when empowered, the AD ratio is going down by 10%, and when you have Ferocity the AD ratio also going down by 10%. And the ult cooldown is getting increased by 10 seconds at all levels. I think this is really good, especially in the earlier ranks, so that you don't snowball too quickly. Now I think balancing assassins like Rengar, that basically Rengar's one job is to assassinate and one-shot somebody. So if they're basically too unbalanced, in a sense that they're too strong, they're going to do their job too easily, right? But if you nerf them too much, they're going to be in a spot where they can't actually do their job and can't one-shot people even when they are played correctly. So it's a little bit of a tight balance, but I do think that this is definitely a step in the correct direction. I do think Rengar should be one of those champions where if you're good at Rengar, he should reward you and you should get fed and one-shot people. But if you're not good on Rengar, he shouldn't be able to do that as well. And I think that at the current state of the game, it's pretty simple. You farm up to level 5, full clear a jungle plus skull, you get level 5, you ulti the nearest lane, jump on them, one-shot them, get a kill, stack up your passive, and then you repeat the process again and again. And it comes to a point where even at level 5, to be honest, as long as you're not jumping onto an enemy under tower at full health, you're likely gonna kill whoever you ult, which basically tells me that Rengar is probably not balanced very well, because if you can do that, then it's gonna be really easy to just snowball, the game. So next up, we have Milio. So now I still think Milio is the best support prior to this patch. Now after this nerf, I'm not so sure. But anyways, what we have here is we have a base health nerf of 30. Can't do math there, but we have a base base health. I don't know why I keep saying AD, but base health nerf of 30. So early game is gonna be a little bit weaker, and base armor is going down by 4 as well. So he's a little bit easier to kill in the lane. And the passive again is getting another hit to damage. Now it's only 10% AD of allied champions instead of 15%. And if you guys remember in previous patch, I'm not sure if it's patch 5.3a, I think it might be patch 5.3, he did get nerfed on this as well. So it's a doubling down on that nerf right now. And another double down is the nerf to W. Now W is basically what makes Milio a strong champion, which is giving the extra range and the healing at the same time. So the cooldown is actually going up by like roughly 2 seconds at all ranks, but you can see at max rank it actually goes up by like 3.5 seconds. So this is actually quite hurtful, I guess, because this is his main ability, right? You can't just I mean, you couldn't spam it to begin with anyway, but the cooldown being reduced of course reduces his uptime in terms of his usefulness. and the attack range increase is it was like over 20%. Now it's gone down just a little bit. It's gone from 16.5 to 15%. So I think this is still like it's all right. Milo is just taking a little bit of a hit, not a huge one like what happened last time. I mean, honestly, this is a pretty huge hit, but yeah. So warm hugs, which is the shielding, the movement speed bonus is going down by a little bit. Now I think the movement speed aspect, to be honest, I think it's not the most major aspect of the E, but I could be mistaken because movement speed is a generally broken stat, but I hadn't really noticed it so much when I play with and against Milio, but overall it's a decent sized nerf to Milio. Now Janna is getting a nerf, and the interesting thing is I don't think I've seen Janna being played in the past like 2 or 3 patches at all, so I don't really know if she's strong or not and whether or not she deserves a nerf, but she's getting one. So her Howling Gale, which is the tornado, the Q, the charging time is going from 12 to 14 seconds. Now I assume this is how long it takes to accumulate 1 charge of tornado, which you can have 2 of, so that's a 2-second nerf per tornado. The damage is also going down by 10 at all ranks, and the shielding cooldown is actually going up by like a good amount at the early levels. Now honestly, I really don't think this really matters that much because you max your shield first anyway, so yes, it'll be a little bit longer in lane, but it, like very quickly, like by like level 7, 8, like this is not gonna matter at all. Like this nerf is irrelevant. And this one, like 2 seconds, like yeah, okay, and like 10 damage is like yeah, okay, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, you're a support, you're not meant to deal damage anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. I think that Janna's nerfs don't really matter. Now Heimer gets another round of nerfs as expected, as I mentioned in the last patch. This is bound to happen because of Riot's style of nerfing bit by bit. But I actually think I think Heimer is actually getting a very big relevant nerf in this patch. So basically, what they're doing is they're basically lowering his AP ratios. So here you can see on your turrets, your AP ratio is going down by 10%. On the laser, your base damage is going down by 5, and your AP ratio down by 10%. On the grenade, you're actually getting a range decrease, so the slowdown range decrease is a little bit, as well as the stun range decrease a little bit. I think this is a really interesting nerf because I think you could have hit like the damage or the CC duration instead, because I don't really like it whenever they change ranges, because when they change ranges, like some of it was necessary, like Fiora's Q range like 2 years ago if you guys were playing at that time, but in general I think changing ranges are really bad, because when people actually get champion mastery, when they actually play the champion and then you nerf the range, they kind of don't, like they have to get used to it all over again. But it is a slight range nerf. And the upgrade on your Apex turret, also again, once again, the AD ratio is going down by 5%, and the laser damage is also going down by 10%. So the interesting thing is this round they didn't actually hit his W, which is one of his major sources of damage, but again, the 10% nerf on AP ratios on the turrets are really big. I think Heimerdinger is actually going to be like not top tier anymore for sure, in my opinion. I think he's gonna be more like middle of the pack, or not, definitely not top tier after these round of nerfs. Now Lucian is getting a very interesting change. Now I think this is, I mean, some people call it a mini rework, but I think this is really just porting over League's passive on him, because this passive was always on League. So first up, in compensation, his base AD is going down by 6. And why is this the case? You guys will see in a while. But his armor per level and magic resist per level is actually going up by a decent amount, so he's going to be a little bit tankier. So he's getting the new passive. The old one with the double shot is still there, but his new passive is Vigilance. When he's healed or shielded by an ally, or when a nearby enemy champion is CC'd, his next 2 attacks deal additional magic damage. So it's literally like having a mini, like, I won't say a mini Solari Charge Blade passive, but that's from getting abilities, but this is from someone healing you, shielding you, or someone CCing, someone near you. And the damage of your second bullet, which is from your original passive, is actually going down slightly in compensation. So in compensation for getting this extra magic damage out of nowhere, the AD ratio is going down slightly, especially, or not slightly, but slightly at max rank, but more so in the early rank, and you're getting lower base AD. So basically, they're kind of compensating by giving you a little bit more damage here, but they're taking away a little bit of damage here and a little bit of damage here. So overall, I'm assuming it should roughly balance out. Maybe a little bit less damage in the early game, but probably a little bit more in the late game. And your W can also W also applies, the mark that it applies will also trigger Vigilance when your ally procs the mark. So the important thing is when the ally proc the mark, if you proc the mark yourself, you're not gonna trigger it. So this is the passive that really made Lucian Nami very strong in League PC, because Nami can just buff Lucian, and Lucian can just dash in and you know, proc the Vigilance passive. So that probably means Lucian Nami is now going to be strong in Wild Rift as well. So gameplay changes. The Aftershock rune is getting a buff. So when you you know, CC someone, now you're getting 80% bonus armor instead of 60% bonus armor, and again 80% magic resist instead of 60% magic resist, and the damage you deal is up a little bit. Now the damage is completely irrelevant in my opinion. You don't take this rune for damage, you take it for tankiness. So now when you talk about the tankiness of the rune itself, now honestly I think whoever was taking Aftershock is still going to take Aftershock. I'm not sure if they want to make people take Aftershock instead of Glacial in the bot lane, and that's why they buffed Aftershock, but I think that this buff is it's kind of nice, but I really don't think it matters all that much, because whenever someone procs Aftershock, they're really tanky anyway, and you generally want to avoid attacking them when they have Aftershock procced for like that 2.5 seconds anyway. So I think it really does its job fine as it is, but it's now just even better basically. So ARAM getting a bunch of changes. They say nothing about the skins, probably because the skins that are coming out are going to be arcane skins, and they obviously don't want to spoil arcane, so we have no information on any skins, but it's probably going to be, you know, Arcane Jace, Vi, Jinx, and yeah, maybe Caitlyn and maybe Singe, maybe Echo, you know, champions like that. Obviously no spoilers for Arcane being said here, but yeah. So anyways, that's pretty much it for the rundown. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.